She's always been dramatic, my sister laughed into the rehearsal mic, smiling straight at our guests. Even as a kid, she needed the spotlight. So today, let's all pray the wedding goes smoothly. People chuckled, glasses clinked, someone even whispered, she's just joking. I stood there in my rehearsal dress, hands folded, face calm. Inside, something quiet shifted. She kept going. She planned this wedding like a corporate project. Spreadsheets, timelines, color codes. Honestly, I'm surprised she didn't schedule our emotions too. More laughter. Louder this time. I nodded. I smiled. I thanked her for the speech. But I noticed something no one else did. The videographer never stopped recording. If you've ever been in a room where someone smiles while cutting you down, you know how subtle it feels and how loud it stays later. Before I continue, I'm curious, have you ever stayed quiet in a moment you knew you'd remember forever? The rehearsal dinner was held in a softly lit hall overlooking the lake. Warm lights, soft jazz, white table settings I had personally approved months earlier, everything looked perfect. On the surface, that night was supposed to be simple, a rehearsal, a toast, a quiet celebration before the wedding. Instead, it became something else entirely. That was the first moment of tension, and I didn't react, not because I was weak, but because I understood something she didn't. Cameras capture tone better than memory. Growing up, my sister was always the charming one, quick wit, easy laughter, socially polished. People loved her. I loved her too, or at least I loved the version of her I hoped was real. But over the years, her jokes started having edges. Little remarks at family gatherings, subtle comparisons, backhanded compliments delivered with a smile. Your career is so stable, she once said, like stability was something to be pitied. I brushed it off again and again, because confronting her always made me look sensitive, and she knew that. The rehearsal speech wasn't an accident, it was a performance. After dinner, guests mingled near the terrace. I stepped outside for air. The lake was quiet, the wind was gentle. My fiancé Daniel joined me a minute later. That bothered me, he said softly. I shook my head. It was just jokes, but that wasn't the part that stayed with me. Escalation number 2 happened later that night. Off mic, off stage, but not off camera. I walked back inside to grab my clutch. The hall was nearly empty. My sister stood near the videographer's setup, unaware I was behind the floral arch. She leaned closer to him and whispered, "Make sure you edit the speech lightly. We don't want her getting emotional over nothing." He replied, "Politely, we usually keep speeches as they are." She laughed again. "She takes things too personally, always has." I froze. Not out of shock, out of clarity. Then my aunt approached her. "That speech was bold," she said carefully. My sister shrugged. "Someone has to keep her grounded. She gets carried away when things are about her, grounded, at my own wedding." I didn't interrupt. I didn't confront. I simply walked away, quietly. But I made one small decision that night. I emailed the videographer before going to bed, one sentence only. "Please include full raw footage in the final wedding edit," he replied the next morning. Of course, I didn't know yet how important that email would become, but I had a feeling. The wedding day arrived calm and bright, soft sunlight through the chapel windows, gentle music, familiar faces. Everything looked exactly how I had imagined it for months. My sister hugged me before the ceremony. "You look beautiful," she said. Then added quietly, "Don't overthink today, okay?" I smiled. "I won't." But that wasn't entirely true, because escalation number 3 had already begun, and she didn't even realize it. 2 days before the wedding, the videographer sent a preview clip. "Just for peace of mind," he wrote, I watched it alone at my desk. Rehearsal dinner footage, uncut, unfiltered. Her speech played first. Smiles, laughter, applause. Then the camera kept rolling. It captured her off-mic conversation, every word, every tone shift, every dismissive laugh. I replayed it 3 times, not out of anger, but out of understanding. That was my mini emotional climax. Not revenge, not validation. Just quiet realization. She hadn't slipped. She had revealed herself. At that point, I had a choice. Confront her privately, cut the footage, or say nothing. What would you have done in that moment? I chose silence. Again. But this time, it was intentional. During the wedding reception, Daniel and I had planned a short video montage. Childhood photos, engagement clips, rehearsal highlights, a simple sentimental addition to the evening. Guests gathered near the screen after dinner. Soft chatter filled the room. My sister sat confidently near the front table. The montage began. Laughter, memories, applause. Then the rehearsal segment appeared. Her speech played exactly as it happened, word for word, smile for smile. The room chuckled politely at first, just like the rehearsal night, but then the video continued. The off-mic footage followed, seamlessly, naturally, without commentary. Her whisper to the videographer, her conversation with my aunt, her quiet remarks about me being too sensitive, no dramatic edits, no captions, just truth. That was the main climax, and it was completely silent. The laughter faded, glances shifted, conversations paused. My sister's smile slowly disappeared as she realized what was playing. She didn't look at me. She looked at the screen. No one said anything. They didn't need to. Because the video didn't accuse her. It simply showed her. After it ended, the room stayed quiet for a few seconds longer than usual. Then applause returned, softer this time, different. Later that evening, she approached me. "I didn't know that would be included," she said carefully. I nodded. It was all part of the rehearsal. She studied my face, waiting for anger, for confrontation, for a scene. I gave her none. I didn't want a speech to become the memory, I told her calmly. But I also didn't want the truth to disappear. She didn't respond. For the first time in years, she was quiet. The rest of the night was peaceful, not because anything dramatic happened, but because something subtle had shifted. People treated me differently, warmer, more respectfully, not out of sympathy, but out of clarity. Weeks later, I watched the final wedding video again, alone, not to relive the moment, but to understand it fully. I realized something important. Staying calm wasn't weakness, it was control. Not every truth needs a confrontation. Sometimes it just needs time and an honest record. My sister still jokes, still smiles, still performs, but now there's a hesitation behind it, a pause that didn't exist before. And I learned a lesson I'll carry far beyond that wedding day. When someone tries to define you publicly, you don't always have to correct them publicly. You just have to remain consistent long enough for reality to speak for itself. If this story resonated with you in any way, I'd genuinely like to know, have you ever let silence protect your dignity instead of reacting in the moment? Because sometimes the most powerful response isn't louder words. It's quiet evidence, and the patience to let the truth replay on its own.